A warm sunny day seemed perfect for a family outing. 6-year-old Jim Panknin, his 10-year-old brother Bill, their 2-year-old brother Bobby, and their mother, Edna, were camping in the now-defunct Deep Lake Resort in northern Stevens County, Washington. Little did they know their adventure would take a devastating turn, leaving behind questions that would haunt the Panknin family for generations. A disappearance that left the entire family in shock, and there was nobody who could help. They decided to take a short hike along a deserted logging road. Birds chirped, leaves rustled in the breeze, and the group felt a sense of peace in the secluded wilderness. 10-year-old Bill, curious and full of energy, became intrigued by the faint sound of running water. Unable to resist, he wandered off the trail to investigate. Edna, ever the protective mother, followed closely to ensure her son didn't stray too far. She left 6-year-old Jim in charge of keeping an eye on Bobby, the youngest of the group. It wasn't a big request. Jim had done it before, and Edna trusted him. But in the wilderness, even the smallest decisions can have unimaginable consequences. Jim, eager to prove himself, but still a 6-year-old at heart, couldn't resist the call of adventure either. Against his mother's instructions, he decided to follow Bill and Edna to see the creek for himself. It was a brief moment of distraction. Bobby, a toddler, barely 2 years old, was left alone on the trail. Surely the group thought they'd only be gone for a moment. When Bill reached the creek, it wasn't what he'd imagined. It was no magical brook, just an unremarkable stream. Disappointed, he and Edna turned back almost immediately. The detour lasted no more than 5 minutes. But when they returned to the trail, Bobby was gone. The frantic search begins. At first, it didn't seem real. Bobby couldn't have gone far. He was just a toddler after all. The family began calling his name, scanning the trail and the surrounding bushes, but there was no response, no sign of their youngest family member. Panic set in quickly. The thick underbrush and rocky terrain offered no clues about where he might have gone. The minutes turned to hours, and their search grew more desperate. When they realized Bobby was truly missing, news spread like wildfire. The community rallied behind the family, and soon, one of the largest search efforts in Stevens County's history was underway. Volunteers, law enforcement, and even military personnel joined the effort. Helicopters buzzed overhead, and search dogs were brought in to sniff out any trace of the toddler. Teams combed the dense forest day and night, but despite the overwhelming response, there was no sign of Bobby, not a single clue to explain how he could have vanished so completely. As days turned into weeks, speculation about Bobby's disappearance grew. Some believed he had been abducted, but the isolated location made that theory seem far-fetched. Others feared he had fallen prey to a wild animal. The area was known for its wildlife, including bears and cougars, and a small child, alone in the woods, could have been an easy target. Yet no evidence, no tracks, no torn clothing, no remains supported this grim possibility. The mystery of Bobby's fate seemed impenetrable, leaving the family suspended in a state of grief, a family forever changed. The Panknin family was shattered. 6-year-old Jim, who had been tasked with watching over Bobby, carried a heavy burden of guilt for the rest of his life. "I left my little brother," he would later say, his voice filled with regret. As an adult, Jim found purpose in protecting others, becoming a firefighter known for his strict adherence to rules. On this job, if you don't follow authority, it can have grave consequences, he explained. His commitment to discipline was rooted in that tragic day when a moment of inattention changed everything. 10-year-old Bill struggled with guilt as well. "I shouldn't have taken off and run after the sound of a creak," he admitted years later. But even he recognized that it was no one's fault. "It's just something that happened," he said, though the pain never truly left him. The tragedy even weighed on 12-year-old Ted, the oldest Penknin sibling, who hadn't been on the hike that day. Ted and their father Howard had been fishing at the time. Ted often wondered if he could have done more. Maybe I should have walked down further than I did. Maybe he was just a little bit further down, he said, replaying the what-ifs in his mind. While the family was already grappling with the unbearable loss, they also faced harsh judgment from others. Some in the community blamed Edna for leaving Bobby unattended, but her sons staunchly defended her. Howard, a retired Air Force Master Sergeant, found solace in routine, working as a state park ranger and maintaining close ties with the local sheriff. Edna leaned on her faith, continuing to teach children at Gloria Dei Lutheran Church until her death in 1999. Though they never spoke much about their pain, it was clear that the loss of Bobby cast a long shadow over their lives. Over the years, the Penknins tried to move forward while carrying the weight of Bobby's disappearance. They never returned to Deep Lake, but the memory of Bobby remained a constant presence. Ted often wondered if his youngest brother might still be alive somewhere. Though the odds seemed slim, he held on to the hope that Bobby might have grown up with another family. His early childhood memories erased, choosing hope over despair. Now, if you think this mystery was mind-boggling, here's another bizarre case that you've probably never heard about. In July 1996, a family from Dresden, Germany, set off on what was meant to be the adventure of a lifetime. 34-year-old architect Egbert Rimkus, his 11-year-old son, Georg Weber, Rimkus's 27-year-old girlfriend, Cornelia Meyer, and her 4-year-old son, Max Meyer, boarded a plane, excited for their trip to the United States. Their plans were simple: explore, make memories, and enjoy the beauty of America. But what started as a dream vacation rapidly spiraled into a chilling mystery that would baffle investigators for years. A journey that became a mystery. Their journey began on July 8, 1996, when they arrived at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. From there, they caught a connecting flight to Los Angeles, where they rented a green 1996 Plymouth Voyager minivan to navigate their adventure. For a while, everything seemed perfect. They explored sunny Southern California, spending time in San Clemente, before heading towards the glitz and excitement of Las Vegas, where they checked into the Treasure Island Hotel and Casino. It was a picture-perfect vacation, until things started to go wrong. While in Las Vegas, Egbert made some unexpected moves. He contacted his bank in Germany, requesting $1,500 be wired to California. And he sent a fax to his ex-wife, Heike Weber, asking for additional funds, but the money he needed never arrived. Despite these financial setbacks, the family continued their travels, venturing into Death Valley National Park on July 22, 1996. At the Furnace Creek Visitor Center, they purchased 2 German-language guides titled Death Valley National Monument Museum Text. That evening, they set up camp in Hanapa Canyon, near Telescope Peak. The next day, they visited various points of interest in the park. Cornelia left a critical clue to their movements when she signed a visitor log at an abandoned mining camp, noting the names of all 4 family members. She added a detail that would later intrigue investigators. They planned to head toward Mengel Pass. Another puzzling clue emerged later. A U.S. flag was taken from the geologist cabin in Butte Valley, later found in the family's possession. It confirmed they had ventured deep into remote areas of Death Valley. What drove them to such isolated and treacherous terrain remains unclear. Whatever the reason, it would soon lead them to disaster, the disappearance. The family was scheduled to fly back to Germany on July 27, 1996. But when their flight departed Los Angeles, none of them were on board. At first, their absence caused concern, but not alarm. As the days turned into weeks, worry turned to panic. Back in Germany, Egbert's ex-wife Heike began to grow increasingly desperate. She reached out to authorities, but no one had answers. What could have happened to a family of 4 in the middle of a well-documented vacation? The silence was deafening. Months passed with no news. Then, on October 21st, 1996, a routine aerial surveillance mission brought a shocking discovery. A park ranger spotted the family's rented Plymouth Voyager in an isolated section of Death Valley known as Anvil Canyon, far from typical tourist areas. The vehicle's location was confusing. Remote, rugged, and utterly inhospitable. The minivan was in terrible condition. 3 of its 4 wheels were flat, and the wheels showed significant damage, suggesting it had been driven over harsh, rocky terrain for more than 2 miles. Inside the van, the scene raised more questions than it answered. A brand new Coleman sleeping bag, an unused tent, children's toys, and a tire jack were left behind. Strangely, the items seemed undisturbed, almost as if the family had no time to use them. Why would they abandon the vehicle? What could have forced them to leave their supplies behind in such a hostile environment? Nearby, a lone beer bottle under a bush caught the investigators' attention. Next to it, a small area had been cleared, and a seat mark suggested someone, likely Egbert, had rested there for shade. But beyond that, the desert offered no further clues. The trail went cold. The discovery of the van sparked one of the largest search efforts in Death Valley's history. Over 200 search and rescue workers were deployed to comb the area. Helicopters flew overhead, and specialized teams, like the China Lake Mountain Rescue Group and the Indian Wells Valley Search and Rescue Group, joined the operation. For 5 days, teams worked tirelessly, navigating the harsh terrain and scouring the unforgiving landscape. The effort was immense, involving 45 searchers active at all times and costing $80,000. But despite the resources poured into the search, nothing was found. No footprints, no clothing, no remains. Just the abandoned van and that solitary beer bottle. On October 26, 1996, authorities reluctantly called off the search, leaving the family's fate shrouded in mystery. For more than a decade, the case remained unsolved. Then, on November 12, 2009, hikers Les Walker and Tom Mahood ventured into a remote section of Death Valley. Both were experienced, off-duty search and rescue personnel with a knack for navigating challenging terrain. They had taken an interest in the disappearance of the German family, and on this day, their persistence paid off. As they traversed the desolate landscape, they stumbled upon skeletal remains. The location was so remote, it was nearly inaccessible. 2 sets of remains, one male and one female, were found exposed to the elements. Nearby, personal items confirmed their connection to the missing family. Cornelia Meyer's passport and bank ID lay amidst the scattered belongings, providing a heartbreaking link to the past. Adding to the eerie discovery, a journal filled with German entries was found. Its pages hinted at the family's final days, but the details remained hauntingly unclear. A wine bottle, likely brought for comfort or celebration, now stood as a silent testament to their ordeal. DNA analysis confirmed one set of remains belonged to Egbert. The evidence left no doubt that the couple had perished in the desert. Despite the discovery of Egbert and Cornelia, the fate of the children remained uncertain. No remains of Georg Weber or Max Meyer were officially identified. However, clues suggested a grim possibility. A lone shoe sole, believed to belong to one of the boys, was found near the site. There were also unconfirmed reports of child-sized bones in the vicinity, but no follow-up investigation ever clarified their significance. The mystery of the children's disappearance added another layer of sorrow to an already tragic story. Tom Mahood, one of the hikers who uncovered the remains, developed a theory about what had happened. He believed the family's trouble began on July 23, 1996, when they attempted to take a shortcut to Yosemite National Park. They likely underestimated the dangers of Death Valley's harsh terrain, venturing into an unfamiliar area in a bid to save time. Mahood speculated that the family might have seen an AT&T tower in the distance and assumed it would lead them to help. However, his research revealed the tower would not have been visible from their location. This misjudgment likely cost them precious time and energy. When their minivan became stranded in a wash, they had no choice but to abandon it and set out on foot. Family's final days were a harrowing battle against the elements, with temperatures averaging 116.5 degrees Fahrenheit. Their supplies would have quickly run out. Mahood theorized they headed south, hoping to reach the Naval Air Weapons Station China Lake. But unlike military bases in Germany, this installation had no fences, patrols, or immediate aid. The vast desert stretched on endlessly, offering no salvation. Exhausted and dehydrated, Egbert and Cornelia likely succumbed to the heat long before reaching safety. The remains discovered in 2009 marked the end of their journey. But the full story of their fate, particularly what happened to Jorg and Max, remains elusive, a haunting reminder of the hidden dangers within Death Valley's beauty. Born October 27, 1975 in Marion, Ohio, Aaron Ralston grew up as an ordinary boy with an extraordinary future waiting for him. His family moved to Denver, Colorado when he was 12 years old. In the shadows of the Rocky Mountains, Aaron developed a love for the outdoors, learning to ski and backpack. His youthful explorations would shape the man he would become. His passion for adventure grew as he learned to navigate the wilderness. His talent and ambition earned him a spot at Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, where he studied mechanical engineering and French, while also minoring in piano. Aaron was more than just a student. He thrived as a resident assistant, studied abroad, and participated in intramural sports. Summers were spent as a rafting guide, honing his skills in nature. After graduating, Ralston began a promising career as a mechanical engineer with Intel. For 5 years, he worked in Chandler, Tacoma, and Albuquerque, but the corporate grind left him unfulfilled. In 2002, he made a life-altering decision. Leaving his stable career behind, he moved to Aspen, Colorado, to dedicate himself to his true passion: climbing. Aaron set an ambitious goal: to climb all 59 of Colorado's 14ers, peaks over 14,000 feet, alone and during the winter. No one had ever achieved this feat before. In 2003, during one of these climbs on Resolution Peak, he survived a grade 5 avalanche with his skiing partners. Though no one was injured, the close call forced him to reevaluate the risks he was taking. Little did he know that the real test of his resilience was yet to come. On April 26, 2003, Aaron set out alone to canyoneer through Blue John Canyon in eastern Utah. The Slot Canyon was remote, its narrow passages carved by centuries of wind and water. Aaron had not told anyone of his plans, a decision that would soon haunt him. As he descended deeper into the canyon, a massive boulder above him shifted. In an instant, it dislodged and pinned his right arm against the canyon wall. Aaron's left hand was injured, but it was his trapped right arm that posed the real threat. The boulder, weighing approximately 800 pounds, was immovable. For the first few hours, Aaron remained calm. He tried to free his arm using his climbing gear, but the rock would not budge. He had a small amount of water, just 12 ounces, and 2 burritos. He rationed them carefully, knowing they were all that stood between him and dehydration. As the hours turned to days, Aaron's situation grew dire. The canyon's temperature fluctuated between scorching heat during the day and freezing cold at night. He tried everything to escape, lifting, chiseling, and even rigging a pulley system with his gear. Nothing worked. By the third day, delirium began to set in. On the fourth day, Aaron faced the harsh reality. He would die unless he amputated his arm. Using the small multi-tool in his backpack, he made superficial cuts, testing his resolve. But cutting through the bone seemed impossible with a dull blade. Then, on the fifth day, Aaron's water ran out. Desperate, he resorted to drinking his own urine. He carved his name, date of birth, and presumed date of death into the canyon wall. He recorded a farewell message for his family, his voice shaking as he apologized and said goodbye. That night, as he drifted in and out of consciousness, Aaron had a vision. He saw himself playing with a future child, his right arm missing. The image reignited his will to live, a painful escape. At dawn, on the sixth day, Aaron had an epiphany. He realized he could break the bones in his arm by applying torque. Summoning his last reserves of strength, he twisted his body until the radius and ulna snapped. Then, using the dull knife on his multi-tool, he began the excruciating process of cutting through his flesh, tendons, and arteries. The procedure took over an hour. Despite the unimaginable pain, Aaron remained focused, using tubing from his camelback as a tourniquet. When he finally freed himself, Aaron was weak and bleeding, but alive. He rappelled down a 65-foot wall and began the grueling 8-mile hike back to his vehicle. After walking 6 miles, he encountered a Dutch family on vacation. They gave him water and food, then hurried to alert authorities. A helicopter team, already searching for Aaron after his family reported him missing, arrived within 4 hours. Aaron had lost 40 pounds and 25% of his blood volume. Doctors later said that had he amputated his arm earlier, he would have bled to death before being found. Park rangers returned to the canyon to retrieve Aaron's severed arm. It took 13 men, a winch, and a hydraulic jack to move the boulder. The arm was cremated, and Aaron scattered its ashes in the canyon 6 months later, saying it belonged there. Aaron's ordeal transformed him into a symbol of resilience. He documented his experience in a book, Between a Rock and a Hard Place, which became a bestseller. In 2010, his story was adapted into the film 127 Hours, directed by Danny Boyle and starring James Franco. The film received critical acclaim and was nominated for 6 Academy Awards. Aaron continued to pursue adventure. He climbed some of the world's highest peaks, including Aconcagua and Monte Pissi. He became the first person to solo climb all 59 of Colorado's 14ers in winter. Aaron also dedicated his life to inspiring others, becoming a sought-after motivational speaker. Despite his public success, Aaron faced personal challenges. He battled depression after the end of a relationship in 2006, and in 2008, he married Jessica Trusty, and the couple had a son in 2010. However, their marriage ended in 2012. Since then, little is known about Aaron, but one thing is certain. To this day, people still think about him as the guy who defied death in the most unbelievable way possible. Thanks for exploring the dangers of the American wilderness with me. Do you ever do any exploring off the beaten path? Have you ever felt like you should have planned better before heading out? If you were in Aaron's situation, do you think you could have done what he did to survive? Share your thoughts in the comments section and let us know. Be sure to like and subscribe, and if you're heading out into the wild, let someone know where you're going to be. We'd hate for you to disappear and miss the next story on Fridays with Tony. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.